Hi everyone, it's Janice. Welcome back into the studio. Today we are going to be making these really cute bowl cozies. They were requested by a friend for her parents. So we're going to show you how I made them. I started with a selection of fabrics that she chose. You can see the old bowl cozy that we are going to be replacing. It's well loved, we'll say that. So she chose this kind of micro floral, and then I was going to pick out some fabrics that I felt went well with it to complement. I'm using all cotton. That way it is microwavable safe, even though I don't think they put them in the microwave, but you can if you use all cotton thread and all cotton fabric, because it won't, like melt or catch fire. You don't want that. And so just that's important if you're going to make these. And they also have wrap and zap, which is what we're putting inside. And that's a special batting that also is microwave safe. So you can check for that. It's wrap and zap, and I'll try to link that below. So I started by undoing the old bowl cozy and just kind of picking it apart so I could use it as my pattern. So it is basically a square that then has some darts cut into it that make it wrap up the side of the bowl. So it took a little doing to undo it, but I got it all pulled apart. And I really only need one side. And I pressed it nice and flat so I could get the best measurement possible. They wanted them to be the same size. They really like them for whatever particular bowl. So that's about 9 inches square. And then the little dart is in halfway, so at 4.5. And it's about 1 inch wide of a dart, and it's about 2 inches into the bowl on all 4 sides. So once I figured all of that out, I made a few notes for myself so that I can replicate the pattern. I do this a lot. I just keep a simple graph paper book, and then this is where I make notes for all kinds of things that I would be patterning later. So we're going to quilt an X through the batting on both sides, and then we are going to create those darts in the center. So like I said, then I'm just measuring 9-inch squares, and you need you can make them reversible. I chose to make them reversible, so I have one side which is one pattern and then another side that's the other pattern. You could just use all the same fabric. It really doesn't matter. It just needs to be cotton fabric. So I'm cutting off those 9-inch squares. And then I am layering batting on each of the sides. So you need 4 squares of fabric and 4 squares of batting. And then I am just sewing really quickly. Oh, sorry, I'm getting over a cold. Sewing really quickly, just quilting simple X's on the diagonal through all of the squares of fabric. And this will hold the batting and the fabric together so it doesn't slide around. Now you can see that I cut my batting squares slightly smaller, so I didn't have all of that extra batting around the edges just in the seam. That's not necessary, but you can do it. So I cut it a little bit smaller, so I had that inset. But that's totally up to you. You could just make them 9 by 9. I think I made mine 8 by 8. So once they're all quilted, we are ready to make our folds and our darts that will kind of help shape the bowl. So I just did this really simply by folding each of my pieces in half. You can measure to the 4.5, and then I'm measuring a 1/2 inch from either side, and that's going to give me my 1-inch dart. Does that make sense? So I'm measuring a 1/2 inch, but the amount of fabric that it will use up in the dart is 1 inch. And I'll sew from that point down 2 inches. So I folded it in half, and I did that for one side. I just made little marks with my pen, and then I'm folding the opposite sides together, and I'm making the same marks. So I'm marking in 2 inches from the side, from the raw side, And then I am measuring a 1/2 inch up from the fold to make that 1 inch by 2 inch deep dart. And I'm going to do that for each of my pieces. I'm making 4 darts on all the sides in the center. And then this is going to shape our little cozy so that it wraps around a bowl. So once you have your darts made, I'm just sewing again from the top where I made that 1/2 inch mark down to the 2 inch mark towards the center. And you see the little triangle that's making our dart. And that's going to fold the fabric together. And I'm just kind of eyeballing, my angle. You could draw it with a ruler if that makes you feel more comfortable, but you can see that it's creating the fold. And then I'm putting the opposite sides together and I'm just finishing making those darts. And I'm going to do this for all 4 pieces. I'm making 2 cozies, so I have 2 sides per cozy. So all 4 of them. And you can see when you open it, now it's got that curved dimension that is going to wrap around the bowl. So now I have my 2 sides and I'm going to just put them together really simply. I'm lining them up at the corners and I'm also lining up those darts. And I'm just going to clip everything into place. It's really not a very big square, so I don't feel like I need to overpin this. I'm just going to sew around the perimeter now to hold the pieces together. And it's not really that complicated. You're just going to sew, like I said, the entire perimeter, and I'm going to leave about 2 inches so that I can turn it right side out when I'm all done. So I'm just lining it up. I'm using a 1/4 inch seam, maybe 3/8 if you want to be a little bit particular, a little bit more careful with it, give a little bit more fabric because it will be washed and used a bunch. But we're also going to go back around and top sew, so that will also help hold it in place. And as I'm sewing over the dart areas, I'm just making sure that one of the pleats of fabric goes one direction and the one goes the opposite direction, so they're not too bulky there, right directly on top of each other. But again, that's that's just a little fussy detail that I particularly like. It wouldn't matter if they were a little bunchy. You can flatten them down, it's fine. So just back stitching at the beginning and the end of that knot of that opening so that it doesn't pull apart. And then I'm going to notch my corners. So I'm just simply trimming ever so slightly the outside of my sewing line so that I'm kind of getting rid of that extra fabric in the corners. It allows it to turn nicer and be a little bit more pointy, have a little less bulk in that corner where you don't really need it. And then it's just pulling the pretty stuff out of the hole and flipping everything around to the nice side. And then I use a little old stick that I have with a rounded end to poke out my corners. And I'm going to take a few minutes and just fuss all of the edges of the seams to be nice and flat and straight. You can also press here. I did skip that step for the day, but making sure that your little opening is folded over nicely. And then I'm just top stitching 1/8 of an inch around the entire perimeter to close up that opening where we turned everything, and also just really finishes the entire cozy really nicely. And again, it's going to trap everything in place around those edges so that it doesn't shift when you're using it. It just gives it also a really nice crisp and finished look. I think I missed there with my sewing, so I had to just pull it off and restart or something. I don't know. My machine was also giving me the fusses this day, and I wasn't feeling well. I've had the flu. It's been horrible. I think a lot of people have had the flu. So finally there you can see, and it's nice and reversible. It's got that cute little fold in it, and I think they're gonna love these. I hope that they match up to the size they wanted. I also did some with the strawberry and gingham print that's super cute, and those little crazy bright florals. So you can put these in the microwave if you use that wrap and zap and cotton. Just make sure that it's 100% cotton, everything you use. And you can see they fit around these small little bowls that are perfect for oatmeal or cereal. And I hope that they love them and they get lots of use out of them. It's a really simple pattern to make. You could also make these and then turn them into a little gift basket for gifting. You could put a little assortment of little breakfast items and tuck these in. Really adorable. So I hope you'll make some. I also have the article up on the blog if you want a little bit more specific information to go along with it. All the measurements will be there, as well as step by step if you prefer to read and sew along. Thanks so much for joining me today, friends. I hope you were inspired to get in your sewing room. See you next time.